Well, today we're in Tel Aviv at Israel's Independence Hall. Just like our Independence Hall in Philadelphia, they have preserved the room in which their Declaration of Independence was read on May 14th, 1948, by David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister. One of the personalities known to Americans who was here was an American Jew, Golda Meir, who was sitting in this gallery. And it really is a gallery. This is an art gallery. There are paintings on the walls. Israel didn't have a lot of money for government buildings, etc., and they borrowed a local art gallery because it would be large enough to seat an audience and the press and so on who came to attend this momentous event. And they borrowed the chairs and they borrowed the rugs and the microphones and so on, and set up the Independence Hall of a country of which it was said the entire country was at war, and the country was the front and all the people were the army. And so on that day there was a terrific attack on every border by 7 Arab nations. Egypt, Sudan, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, all uniformed armies, British commanders. Let's give the British credit. They led the Arabs in hordes in an attempt to annihilate the new nation before it could even be started, and all 7 of those heavily armed nations and their British commanders lost. And Israel was started. And it sounds like divine intervention. And Tom, it's very biblical, isn't it?
There certainly is a strong biblical background to this whole event of the creation of the state of Israel. We read in the prophecy of Ezekiel, chapter 37, verses 11 through 14, about the explanation of the vision of the dry bones. The Lord told Ezekiel, "Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off on our part. Therefore prophesy, and say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, O my people, I will open your graves, and cause you to come up out of your graves, and bring you into the land of Israel. And ye shall know that I am the Lord, when I have opened up your graves, O my people, and brought you up out of your graves, and shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall ye know that I, the Lord, have spoken it, and performed it, saith the Lord." So many, many centuries ago, the prophet Ezekiel foretold that he would bring the people out of the graveyards of the nation and return and restore the Jewish people back to their own homeland and establish them in their land in connection with the second coming of the Messiah, the Lord Jesus Christ.
You think there's simply no doubt that what we're seeing in Israel, 4 million Jews gathered after this long dispersion, is the beginning of the fulfillment of end times prophecy.
Absolutely, and it's a process. It started with the bones coming together, and then covering with flesh, and then becoming able to stand up, and the Spirit coming on them. So it is a process that began a long time ago and is continuing on through this time and will be ultimately culminated at the second coming of the Messiah, Christ Jesus. Well, what we are seeing and what Zola explained to us about the Declaration of Independence was not the first thing that happened in the restoration to the land. Actually, it began over a century ago with the early stages of the Zionist movement. And we happen to have here a well-known Zionist from the diaspora. We're going to ask to explain to us about the early stages of this movement and its culmination in the beginning of the State of Israel. Zola, can you tell us about how this all began?
Yeah, Zionism, to define it, is the movement of the people returning to the land. After centuries of anti-Semitism in Europe, the Jews had really had enough and felt as though the only place of safety where they would not be discriminated against was their ancient homeland, Israel, which God gave to Abraham. They had a divine right to be there. They had prior title to the place, being by far the oldest organized people to ever live in the land, way back with Joshua and King David and so on, goes back 3,000 years and more. And their claim might be disputed by local squatters and so on, but no one could deny the archaeology in the ground, the artifacts throughout the land which were Jewish, the Dead Sea Scrolls, things like this, which proved earlier Jewish occupancy. And so they started to come back. Jews of every nation, of every color. Zionism is the opposite of racism. When you're in Jerusalem, 80 languages are spoken in that city. People coal black from Africa, blonde, blue-eyed, and white from the northern reaches of Finland, Sweden, and Norway. The people of every nation, Koreans, Japanese, South Americans, come and who are Jewish in one connection or another, along with Americans and Europeans and so on, making a unique mix, which is the only country in the world that is not racist. So it's usually attacked in its strength, and so this mindless UN resolution, Zionism is racism. Zionism is simply the movement to bring the Jews back to the land. And when Tom calls me a Zionist, I'm all for it. In fact, not just the Jews, even the whole church will come back to the land according to biblical prophecy. But in any case, all of God's people will come here, and they are starting to come, and they started really about 100 years ago in earnest. They have always come, frankly, and some never left the land. Some Jewish people remained here from King Herod's time and the destruction of the temple right on through the Muslim period, the Crusades, the Inquisitions in Europe, the coming of the Turks, the coming of the British, the coming of the Arabs, and so on, and have always been in the land. But Theodore Herzl, whose picture is behind us on the wall, instigated a movement, a proclamation in 1896 of a real return to the land, that the Jews have a right to establish a kingdom in Palestine. And then we came to the Balfour Declaration. Britain's David Balfour, the Prime Minister, issued a proclamation that His Majesty's government view with favor, in the British style, the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. And Tom, I know you have an article about Balfour.
Yes, there's an article here that describes the motives that Balfour had in making the Balfour Declaration. It says that Balfour believed the Jews were exiles who should be given back their homeland in payment of Christianity's immeasurable debt. He wrote, "The position of the Jews is unique. For them, race, religion, and country are interrelated, as they are interrelated in the case of no other religion and no other country on earth." So the reasons he gave for making his declaration were those of a sincere Christian who wanted to repay a debt to Israel for all that Israel had done for the believers in the Bible and in Christ, and because of their connection to the country that's incontrovertible.
And then, unfortunately, the satanic reaction seemed to be the Holocaust. Anti-Semitism went rampant in Europe, and especially in Germany, and the peerless Nazi concentration camp system came underway, and 50% of living Jews in the world were killed in those concentration camps. This gave the world a guilty conscience. And I think we came about to the founding of Israel and this Declaration of Independence because other nations finally were ashamed and thought, well, this is, the Jews really do deserve a rest and a place to rest. And seemingly all agreed in concert with the establishment of a Jewish homeland, and that was the reading of this declaration in 1948. We just have a couple of minutes, Tom, but we can recall many a story from those days.
Well, what happened after the Declaration of Independence was signed? Was it just accepted by everybody immediately, or was there trouble ahead?
7 nations, as I pointed out in the opening of the program, were poised on the borders, attacked immediately, And the Israeli forces, so-called, gosh, we saw an old black and white film here, teenage kids, young girls with machine guns and so on, and they somehow beat them. God wanted to have a land here, and it was established. And gosh, I remember those days. I was in Hebrew school, in Sunday school. I was 10 years old when this land was established, and we brought paper leaves to paste on a picture of a tree with no leaves on the blackboard. It brought 10 cents with each, and when we'd made 30 leaves on our tree, that $3 was sent to Israel to plant a tree, and tree by tree, birth by birth, immigrant by immigrant, a modern nation was made here. The Arabs continued to attack in 1967. On the Six-Day War, they tried to, as Nasser of Egypt boasted, push the Jews into the sea. Didn't work out very well. In 6 days, they were all beaten again. Syria, Jordan, and Egypt. And this time, the Israelis were able to occupy what is called now the West Bank in popular parlance, but reoccupy, really, the Jewish land of Judea and Samaria. The 73 war, the Arabs tried attacking on a high holy day, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, when no soldier was really at his post. And they got in a blow that time, but were beaten still again. And there has not been another Arab attack on the Israeli mainland up to date, although prophecy has it that the whole world isn't satisfied. And as the Lord said in Matthew 24:9, ye shall be hated of all nations. We've got to wrap up this part of the program, Tom. We have very interesting interviews pertaining to the subject coming up.
From the lofty heights of Mount Hermon to the lowest spot on earth. From the bustling streets of Jerusalem to the tranquil shores of Galilee. From the crystal clear waters of En-Gedi to the stark beauty of an arid wilderness. The Holy Land, a place of fascinating contrast that will enrich your life, historically, spiritually. See the Holy Land with Zola Levitt. For more information, call her right today.
In Israel's recent history, the most important peace treaty was signed in 1979 with Egypt. Representing Israel was Prime Minister Menachem Begin. 14 years later, Menachem's son, Benny Begin, follows in his father's footsteps.
Oh, Mr. Begin, thank you. The son of Menachem Begin, taking time to join us this morning.
Thank you, and a beautiful morning in Jerusalem.
On our program, we're very interested in the state of Israel, the modern state from when it was established. Ben-Gurion, Golda Meir, your illustrious father. What do you see up ahead?
If you take any reference in time, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, the change is dramatic. Where was the Jewish nation in the early 40s? Where was the state of Israel in the early 50s? It's a state which becomes stronger and stronger in an environment which is very difficult for a democracy, and especially for a Jewish democracy, to thrive. It is a threatened, beleaguered, besieged democracy, but it's doing very well.
Yeah. Now, on these peace talks, gosh, in America, we're encouraged to think this is good for Israel, there should be peace. What is your view?
Talks are good for everyone concerned in the Middle East, but we have to be precise. These are not yet, at least, peace talks. And the reason is very simple, at least as it goes to Syria. The Syrians were never good enough to tell us or anyone else in the world that the goal of the negotiations from their point of view is the simple conclusion of a contractual, binding, formal peace treaty with Israel, or for that matter, with the Jewish democracy. And until they tell us that in so many words, I don't think you can call the negotiations or the talks as peace talks. There are diplomatic talks. It is an important process, but we're not there yet. And when people tell me it's not that important, why be so particular and formalistic? My response is simple. If it is so simple and unimportant, why wouldn't the Syrians define the goal as the signing of a peace treaty? They're not.
Has Syria really had some kind of change of heart? Has President Assad become a peacemaker, or are they different?
We have no sign yet that they have changed their hearts or their minds. It is an arming dictatorship. They buy from all over. They have equipped themselves in the last year or two with the modern tanks, self-propelled howitzers, and most threatening surface-to-surface Scud-C ballistic missiles. These are not good signs.
I'm an observant Jew.
Avraham Burg of Prime Minister Rabin's Labor Party also sees difficulties with the peace process, but remains optimistic.
Between us and the Palestinians, it is not a pragmatic problem only. It is not the security needs of the State of Israel and the self-determination of the Palestinians only. We are still yet on the emotional level. They don't trust me, I don't believe them. For years, for decades, for centuries maybe, I was educated to believe that they are all demons, and they were brought up to believe that we are all Satans and devils. How you demonize the other. We are in the psychological level to persuade ourselves, and they have to persuade themselves that it is possible to deal with your yesterday's enemy. That's the situation. Therefore, you have to build an inside process to persuade people, let's move for peace. You know, we Jews, we have ladders of heroism. The ultimate one is the one which is being asked in our sages, who is the hero among heroes? And the answer is the one who makes his worst enemy to his beloved friend.
Members of the diplomatic
Prime
corps.
Minister Yitzhak Rabin recently spoke before an assembly of the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem and outlined his agenda for Israel's future.
We in Israel are trying now to focus on three main lines of operation. Activities. The first one, to exploit the framework of the Madrid Conference to negotiate peace face to face with the Syrian delegation, the Jordanian Palestinian delegation, and the Lebanese delegation. We approach these peace negotiations with a bona fide attitude, with understanding that without compromise on both sides, we cannot achieve peace, but we will not compromise on what we consider to be vital to the security of Israel. We'll never compromise on the unity of Jerusalem as the capital of the State of Israel. We are trying on another line to make the people of Israel more educated, more civilized, to invest much more in education, to make the people of Israel working to fight unemployment. We want to do all this to make sure that the people of the Bible, by their own way of life, by their education and civilization, will deserve to be the people of the Bible. Not just by being here, but being what the Bible teaches us to be. And the third is to make a real effort to bring in more and more members of the Jewish community from what used to be the Soviet Union. I don't know for how long they'll be able to leave the Soviet Union.
In Sinai, we spoke about a geographical shock absorber between us and the Egyptians. Here we speak about a sacred piece of land with historical, cultural, strategical, biblical, religious affiliation to the people of Israel. And I have to find a solution. Look, I'm an 8th generation Israeli. My mother was born in Hebron. You know where is Hebron?
Yes.
In the midst of the autonomy.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And when my late grandfather was the last chief rabbi of Hebron, when there will be a peace according to my concept, Hebron will be part of the price. It will be a very painful price.
This, which should say in English, is Hebron,
the birthplace, or rather the dwelling place of Abraham
Exactly.
of old, the original.
And when we speak about compromise, it is not primarily a compromise between me and you, between me and the Palestinians. It's first of all a compromise between me and my greater dream of the greater land of Israel, and the compromise of the Palestinians and his own or her own dream of the greater land of Palestine. First, I have to compromise my own dreams and to say they are dreams, and I have a pragmatic, real, present-time reality to live in. It will be difficult, but we have a democracy, and majority will decide.
Do you believe that if Israel gave away territory until it came back to the smaller borders of bygone years, that you would simply find it indefensible and go out of existence?
Well, there's no question about it. Although we don't hide our basic approach. Our basic approach is that the right of the Jews to their land, to Eretz Israel, is based on that document which is known to everyone as the Bible. And we would never agree to cede any part of our country, our land, to any foreign rule. But from a strategic point of view, I think you're perfectly correct. No peace can be conceived if Israel is squeezed back to its impossible, indefensible 1949-67 borderlines, leaving it with a stretch of land 10, 12, 15 miles wide. This is absurd.
Traveler, when you come to see the Holy Land, does it make your heart leap up with joy? Sing with us a hymn unto our children's children. May they meet the King in Israel. Brothers, we are needing your mighty arms. Sisters, we are needing your love. Israel, by divine right, God is calling us home. Israel, by divine right, our God is calling us home.
Well, where divine right comes in, we talked to some interesting people about Israel this time. It does appear that well, God has brought his people back, but there are problems. As Benny Begin pointed out, you know, when he said there's no peace with the old borders, the 1949 to 67 borders, that's easy to see on a map why he would be discouraged. We used this map throughout the series. Here is the old border, the dotted line. And here's the ocean, I mean the Mediterranean Sea. And this strip of Israel along in here, you could drive across this in a car in 10 minutes. I mean, this is not defensible. You could put a lot of soldiers on it, but as it can be attacked from the seaside, by air, and from both north and south, and I doubt any army could hold it, even the Israeli army. And that is one reason why that old boundary just didn't work out, and when it was tried, it didn't work. There was constant war. Prime Minister Rabin, speaking to a large Christian audience there at the Feast of Tabernacles, boy, he got some applause when he said no compromise on Jerusalem. And why should there be? Jerusalem is not it's not really a Muslim holy place. I mean, they can claim it is, but that's based on two shrines that are built there, and the story of Mohammed's horse stepping off in a ride to heaven from a certain spot on the Mount Moriah. That's different than King David building a whole city and the Jews living there for millennia, for century upon century upon century. It's not the people of Israel have a prior claim, and they liked it when he said, we'll educate ourselves to be the Jewish people of the Bible. This is a thrill, and that would be nice. Although the Bible is very frank about the Jewish people, they
failed in many ways, as do Christian people, from biblical standards. But at least if it were made the constitution of the country, in effect, they would then be within God's will, the divine right. And the continuing to bring the Jews out of Russia and elsewhere. Gosh, my homeland, that is to say where my father was born, Latvia, the Jews are terrorized there now. They need to get out. The Jewish people desperately need a homeland, and they've got one, and it's always in contention, but I don't think we have to make the point. They need it. As Dr. Sabato said, God sent us here. Well, next week we're going to talk to real West Bank settlers. I mean, we have here and there, but we're going to really sit down with them and ask them how life is out there. I wish you would master some of these topics. Our Institute for Jewish and Christian Studies takes them up in detail. We're having a kind of a special right now where you can waive the entrance fee and take the first 3 courses for $89. And people are making New Year's resolutions right and left to go ahead and join our institute and complete it. It's a 1-year study, and by next New Year's you can have this out of the way and a lot of knowledge. And believe me, the things I say, I wasn't born with. I learned these things, and we wrote them down in our institute charts and maps and put them on the tapes, and then they're there for you to learn. $89 for the institute introductory courses, please. And remember the funds. We just need your support to continue to make these programs. And Sha'alu, Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Israel, by the word of Jehovah,